all dead this morning after the attack on a community college in southern Oregon. The gunman later killed by police, but the shooting has reignited fears and the debate on gun laws. And joining us again this morning, a former McKinney police officer, former Marine active shooter expert, Chris Grollnek. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Amy.
We have to talk to you about these things too often. And I wish we could talk to you about how your family's doing now that your daughter's off to college. But this particular mass shooting has you particularly upset, doesn't it?
Well, yes, because it's been politicized, and I've been on your show enough that you know that I am the last person to ever speak ill of anybody going through one of these things, from the administration to police to just about anybody. But we have more politicians racing to the scene of this active shooter incident, screaming about gun control or doing something about, a firearm, when they ignore the 16,000 gunshot victims in Chicago since 2012. Now that city has the strongest, most stringent gun laws on the books, and people have been texting me vicious emails and tweets, etc. That whatever, but they're saying that I'm part of the right's message, and I think I've said clearly I'm neither right nor left. I'm common sense. We need to learn how to prevent these things. We need to learn how to mitigate them. There is a standard in place for OSHA by OSHA right now. All healthcare and all social workers and all dentist office must get active shooter prevention training, workforce violence prevention training, etc. It's a mandate. If you don't do it, it's a huge fine. If you do it, there's a possibility you get an insurance break. So there's an incentive. But we don't have something like that for our children. If your children were in school and your wife worked at a hospital, would you really feel better that your wife had the training but your kids didn't? So it's outrageous. And then to see somebody get on TV and politicize it about 4 seconds after it happened without knowing all the facts, because we've talked about the difference between a terrorism event and an active shooter event. And an active shooter event can be or a terrorist event can be masked by an active shooter incident. And this is starting to look like that's what happened. A radicalized person is going around, asking if you're a Christian, and if you are, you get shot in the head. That's not a random act of violence, and that's not somebody that we discount as simply crazy that does, targets of opportunity. That's somebody picking out targets and shooting them. And other people said, well, he didn't take it easy on others. If they didn't answer, he shot him in the leg. Well, that's not a very good consolation prize either. React, escape, survive. If you see something, get out immediately. Leave your cell phone, leave your purse, leave your car keys, get out. This shelter in place, it works great when you're trained, but the school didn't even have an armed guard. They had an unarmed security guard. And then, I've got a lot of good friends on the ground there with a lot of good intelligence, and they're trying to push the notion that this was not a gun-free zone. Well, it's a school, and all schools are gun-free zones, except for security and police. Why not have a police officer there? 2,000 people were murdered in Chicago. Nearly 2,000 people. 1,679 people were murdered in Chicago by gun violence. But that's only gun violence since 2012. We haven't heard one politician on the air talking about, what to do about it. And the reason is because the gun laws there are so strict. They're the strictest anywhere in the country, and there's the most deaths by guns.
Chris,
I'm not an advocate. I'm sorry. I'm just frustrated.
It's okay. It's quite all right. I understand your frustration. I'm just curious. He was killing people who stood up and said they were Christians, and then he shot them one by one. Obviously, those people must have known they were going to get shot at next. What do you do in that kind of situation?
Hey, Amy, do you remember we spoke about fight, flight, and freeze? There's a difference between the natural thought or human progression in our bodies of fight and flight, but there's something called the forgotten F. I wrote a white paper on it. Your viewers can Google it if they want, fight, flight, or freeze, and it's about the freeze mechanism in our body. And when overwhelming fear takes us and holds us captive, we physically can't move because we have not trained our bodies. We have not mentally predisposed ourselves through behavioral modification techniques, almost like the old subliminal messaging to buy Coca-Cola, buy Doritos. We need to, we live in a new time. We need to have those subliminal messages, which is called behavioral modification. If something is going wrong, if something doesn't seem right to you at any time, at any point, get up, react, escape, and survive. Get out. And, I won't revisit the church, but I'll tell you briefly, that shooter reloaded 3 times, and there were some very large people inside there, and I pray for the victims' families there, at this school, everywhere, and especially for the first responders and teachers, because this is going to scar them forever, not just a couple days.
Chris, what could be done to help these situations, aside from the training, in terms of legislation? Is there anything that can be done apart from outlawing all guns or something like that?
I believe there is. I think there's several different things and ways to approach it. And Dave, I just want to say, I do commend the school, but there's a little confusion out there about what training means, because training means different things to different people. The school said that they just went through an active shooter scenario on Monday, because classes just started a few days ago on Tuesday, I believe. But they went through a response scenario instead of a prevention scenario. We teach from the before the flash. The police arrive after the bang. And remember, these things are over in 7 minutes. It takes police 17 minutes to get there. Shouldn't there be some common sense legislation to worry about the mitigation of those 7 minutes? I've been contacted by several politicians, one prominent one. We're going to be sitting down talking very soon here in the next few days. I unfortunately won't be able to tell you until I'm done with the conversation, but out of respect. But I mean, I'm not selling anything. Everything on our website is free. What we do for corporations, schools, companies, and this OSHA mandate for hospitals, that's all mitigated and fine. But my thing is, save the common person out there, the regular citizen on their YouTube that wants to watch a video. Watch our free 26-minute video, because it can help. It can save your life.
All right, Chris. Always appreciate you coming on with your expertise, and I'm sorry we have to have you on so often.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. ActiveShooterExpert.com has that video for free, and I would greatly appreciate you throwing it up there if possible.
All right, Chris Grollnek, former McKinney police officer, now an active shooter expert.